Fox 2 presents Hancock and Kelley.
A good Sunday morning to you. Welcome to Hancock and Kelley on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right, John Hancock.
Top of the morning.
On the left, Michael Kelley.
Good morning.
And I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda, Missouri versus Biden. The fate of the president's massive student loan forgiveness plan is being decided in St. Louis. St. Louis mayoral candidate Cara Spencer drastically outdraws Mayor Tishaura Jones in her campaign launch. Does that tell us anything? Also, President Biden's big flip on the crisis at the U.S. southern border. And our quote of the week is from Dr. Anthony Fauci. Was he really following the science during the COVID pandemic? Plus, leadership questions make the already messy convention center expansion in St. Louis even messier. Hunter Biden goes to trial, and a president is the star of the 80th D-Day anniversary events in France, but it was not President Biden. We begin with a showdown in St. Louis federal court over President Biden's sweeping student loan forgiveness plan. The Supreme Court struck down the president's first attempt at this last summer.
This is $500 billion, right? I mean, that's almost 2 years the GDP of the state of Missouri. And this is all going to, from teachers, truckers, and farmers to people who haven't paid off their student loans.
My administration has taken the most significant action to provide student debt relief ever in the history of this country.
How about Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Oklahoma, North Dakota, and Arkansas have all joined Missouri as plaintiffs, asking a judge to issue an injunction against the president and Education Secretary Miguel Cardona and stop their loan forgiveness plan. The legal team for the Department of Education argues that the move to erase hundreds of billions of dollars in college loans owed to U.S. taxpayers is allowed under Secretary Cardona's rulemaking authority. John, the judge's ruling is less than 2 weeks away. This is a huge presidential campaign issue, isn't it?
Yeah, but this case
decided in St. Louis.
This case is a no-brainer. The president, the Secretary of Education, certainly doesn't have the authority to appropriate money. This is trying to buy votes, literally trying to buy votes in an unconstitutional fashion. The president cannot appropriate dollars. Now, you may, if you've got student loans out there, you may be hoping for this. There is a way that this could be done through the Congress, because Congress has the ability to appropriate money, but they're not going to pass this. It's $500 billion, Andy. At some point, we just keep spending and spending and spending, and neither side has shown any wherewithal to try and restrain the growth of the federal government. This thing, it would be a fiscal disaster.
But is there a difference? They're not really spending money, they're just not getting repaid money. I mean, it's a form of spending, but it's not like they're shelling out. The money's already gone.
At the end of the day, there's not much difference than when we gave trillions of dollars away to the largest corporations, and nearly every business out there got money that they were told they weren't going to have to repay. John's right. This could go through the Congress, but guess what? The Republicans want to continue to try to put younger people in a bad spot and continue to put the burden of this college system on there. So as a result, we see President Biden having the fight that needs to take place. And it's not just a fight for a bunch of freeloading kids.
Well,
these are parents. These are accountants right here in our own neighborhoods.
You're shifting their debt onto the backs of farmers and truckers like the Solicitor General.
Yes. No, they're getting their share just like when we gave the world's largest corporations money away. Look, guys, we are saddling these young people with house payments and no houses. This is one of the biggest drivers of what's happening in our economy.
This is a great day, Andy. Too often over the past several months, Michael's been right. That ends right now. The difference between PPP is that it was appropriated by Congress. That's number one. Two, what do you say to those families that scrimped and saved, or those kids that worked 3 jobs and paid for their college education, or all of the millions of Americans that have paid off their student loans and now everybody else gets a free ride? I mean, this is fundamentally unfair.
It's been a while since we talked about St. Louis's convention center expansion. The project is not going well, and now there are calls for longtime St. Louis tourism chief Kitty Ratcliffe, president of Explore St. Louis, to step down. The 2-phase convention center expansion has been plagued by delays and is way over budget, tens of millions of dollars, so much so that phase 2 is now in jeopardy. St. Louis business stalwart Bob Clark, the founder of Clayco Construction, says Ratcliffe must go now to salvage the expansion project. But Michael, she now says she's staying through the end of her contract, which is next summer, next June.
Well, I think it's important that we remember Bob Clark has been a bit of a Nostradamus on this whole thing. It was 3 years ago he said, hey, look, let's quit Frankensteining this convention center and costs are going to overrun. And guess what? He's been right. Look, we've had the same convention director for nearly 20 years. I can't imagine there's another city in the entire country that's kept the same convention strategy for the last 20 years. Change is coming. Rather than continuing to put Band-Aids on broken systems in the city of St. Louis and in the St. Louis area, and this is something that impacts the entire area, it would be helpful to take a step back and let's put something together that we can be proud of that could be world class. And if we're going to do that, I think guys like Bob Clark ought to be in that conversation, if not leading it.
John?
Well, my guy's got Nostradamus and Frankenstein showing up at the convention center. That's two more than I thought we'd have.
Has she not done well, being dealt a crummy hand? I mean, you sell conventions in St. Louis, see how far you get.
It's not going well. It's
Right.
not going well. Now, the Bob Clark plan, is that a panacea? I don't know. But at least it's visionary and it's expansive, and he wants to build something there that would really stand out, and not this kind of nickel and dime, that over budget, not able to complete project. I mean, there are some real problems at the convention center. They're not all Kitty Ratcliffe's fault. The underlying crime issues in St. Louis are a problem as well.
Last week, we told you that St. Louis Alderwoman Cara Spencer was running for mayor, setting up a rematch of the 2021 race between her and Mayor Tishaura Jones. On Tuesday, Spencer officially launched her campaign, toasting the city and a huge crowd with a citywide beer. Her campaign launch drew 4 to 5 times more people than Mayor Jones's campaign launch a couple of weeks earlier. How much significance do you give this, Michael? Does the crowd size matter?
I think it shows some momentum. Interesting, she's the alderman for the world's largest brewery, Anheuser-Busch, and she held up a citywide beer. How things are different, right, than they were just a decade or two ago. Look, Cara Spencer is going to capitalize on the discontent that exists in the city. People who see basic government services failing and want to see some change. At the end of the day, if you look at Cara Spencer's policies and the mayor's, they're not that much different. Now, we've seen Cara Spencer move to the right and kind of come more back to a policing-centric, let's protect and pick up trash, etc. I think that that's going to make this a very close race. This was a really good start, minus that whatever beer thing was.
How much importance do you put on a kickoff event? Because that was pretty impressive.
Well, it's not unimportant, but it's not that important. The real importance in terms of people showing up is on Election Day in February and then again in April. And that's where the test is going to be met, or not, by Cara Spencer. Jones will have that progressive machine out of the Central West End. Those folks are going to show up and vote for socialism. And Spencer is going to have to turn out everybody else, and we'll see how that works.
Democrat Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker just signed a $53 billion budget, the largest in state history. Is fueled by a huge tax hike on sports betting.
We're the third largest sports betting market for sports betting companies, and we had a much lower tax rate than many of the largest of those markets, and we're just kind of bringing ourselves more in line, but at a lower rate.
The increase is expected to bring in $200 million, about 20% of the overall jump in the state budget. Companies like FanDuel and DraftKings, which do big business with people from Missouri who cross the river around here just to go bet, will feel the brunt of this. John, how should Missourians feel about hundreds of millions of dollars going across the river?
Well, we're going to have sports gaming in all likelihood on the ballot this November in Missouri. We'll see how that does.
It's not polling well, though, is it?
Well, but yeah, it's early. It hasn't been a campaign run yet, and I don't think there will be money expended on the no side of that thing. We'll see. But Illinois, what a mess. They're spending another $1 billion. They're raising taxes on gambling, not just gambling, on businesses. Businesses are fleeing that state. It is an absolute microcosm of how not to attract people and companies. Pritzker, man, they've got a bloated budget over there.
What do you think about Missouri money going to help fund things for our friends on the other side of the river?
Regardless of where you're at on sports betting, it's going to be the reality of our country. And if Missouri does approve it this time or the next time, it's happening. And this money is being spent. We can talk about the ills of what it means for society. This revenue is coming. And the fact that Missouri's leaving it on the table, John boasts that, here in Missouri, we're cutting budgets, we're doing this. we're doing that, right? Yeah, so you are, but this is money that could be going into infrastructure that you've been neglecting.
Up next on Hancock and Kelley, President Biden's about face on the U.S. southern border, and his son Hunter goes to trial. Should and would the president pardon him if he's convicted?